Jai Shimanarana, here we are. Thank you for
Jai
participating.
Narayana. My obeisances to
And
you, Mataji.
yeah, tell.
Well, thank you, Mataji. And I just thought that I had a topic in mind that I wanted to discuss. And would it be all right if I present its introduction and introduce that to you today?
Yes, please you introduce it.
Yeah.
Then
So
we
what I
talk.
wanted to yeah, absolutely, Mataji. Thank you. So what I wanted to discuss today was something that everyone who has anything to do with Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism talks about, and
Okay.
and that topic is the Kali Yuga, Mataji. We hear everyone from Norse pagans right through to
Oh,
traditionalists. Everyone seems to know about it. Everyone's got an opinion about it. There's all
yeah.
sorts of misconceptions about the Kali Yuga, about what it is, what's going to happen. There are some educated people who talk about it in terms of what's defined in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Before we get into the detail, Mataji, I'll just give you a broad brush idea of
Yes.
what is commonly known. So,
Yeah.
what's commonly known amongst people like myself and my group and others is that it's a time of decline. It's a time when things aren't
Yeah.
very good. These are bad times, not quite end times. We're not going into the Abrahamic ideology, but
Yeah.
these are bad times. And some people think, well, it's going to go on for 432,000 years. Other people say it's less. Some people say, oh, we're nearing the end of it.
Yeah.
Some people say it ends when Kalki comes and resets everything. So there's all sorts of things about it. Some people say you'll find the lifespan of individuals going down, but I think what I'd like to what I'd like to understand, Mataji, from you is what determines a yuga cycle? What are the things that is it the consciousness of the people? Is it time itself? What is it that determines a yuga cycle? And importantly and practically, Mataji, it's what the changes that we're going to see. Are they going to be noticeable at an individual level or more on a material level or more a consciousness level? And secondly, Mataji, things like organizations and structures, how do they play out in the Kali Yuga? So I've got quite a lot of things in my mind, and maybe as the discussion goes on for the next hour, we'll talk about those subjects. So I'd love to hear from you, and maybe if there's stuff we've not covered in the next hour, we can
Yeah.
extend that to part two. But I
Yeah.
think it'd be good to get that introduction from you first. So, and thank you for your time today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for asking such nice questions. Okay. Now let's start with the general overview. The cycle of the yugas. There are four yugas fundamentally, and each cycle is called the Mahayuga. Okay. Now, the cycle of the four yugas is very similar to the cycle of the seasons of the year. We have, in India it's a bit more complicated because there are 6 seasons instead of 4. But let's, focus on the 4 seasons that we know in the West, which are the spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Okay. Now, this cycle of the seasons in the year is a a reflection of the cycle of the universe, in which things are created, come to fruition, come to the complete development, and then start to decay, to decline. So in spring we have a lot of vitality. We have lots of new plants coming up, and blossoms
Yes,
and
new life.
new
New
life.
life emerges.
Yes.
Yes.
Then in summer, life becomes ripe. Especially this applies to the two great experiences, in the cycle of the year, which are the food grains and the sun. In the summer, the sun is the strongest, and always in the summer, the food grains become ripe. Lots of fruits become ripe, So it is the completion of the year, the highest point. Then we have the autumn, when the sun starts to travel, towards the south.
The descent of the sun. The descent of the sun.
Towards the winter solstice. This is shown interestingly in the Celtic and Norse, especially in the Celtic wheel of the seasons, that has more than 4 points, but basically the two solstices and the two equinoxes are measuring the apparent course travel of the sun. So during 6 months the sun becomes stronger, and in the other 6 months the sun becomes weaker. Then it comes to a point when again it starts, it is reborn. Okay. Now, the winter solstice, it has always been a very important moment of the year for many cultures, especially in the northern hemisphere. So the yugas are very much similar to the 4 seasons of the year, because Satya Yuga is the new life of the planet, in which human beings have a very easy life. They are very qualified. So it is said in the shastra and Vedic tradition that in Satya Yuga there is only one varna and only one ashram. In Satya Yuga they're all Paramahamsas. And the Yuga Dharma is just a meditation. Because people, can do it more easily, because they are more inclined to do it. They're not disturbed by so many problems of life. And the earth is giving naturally, spontaneously, whatever we need to live happily. And the weather is nice, and there is no scarcity, basically there is no winter. It's always a very nice weather, very nice climate. Then gradually we come to the Treta Yuga, or Satya Yuga is also sometimes called the Krita Yuga. Then we have the Treta Yuga, in which there is some disturbance that starts to appear in society due to greed, due to duality, due to the Asuric mentality. And it starts.
So, Mataji, I've got a question on this very specific point. You mentioned that there are some changes that start to occur.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you, and I've always been fascinated by this, because obviously you read about the transition between the Dwapara Yuga to the Kali Yuga in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when things started to feel a bit off. Is the prime determinant of the change the human being? Is it time? What is it, Mataji, that's driving that change that you've just outlined?
It's time. It's the season. It's like this. The season of the year is a natural cycle. So of course the human beings who are born in the next yuga will be more suited for that yuga. We are attracted to take birth where we need to go and take birth. That's the principle of affinity. Like the equal
Yes.
attracts the equal.
Yes, and now that makes total sense, because what you're saying here is that for someone to be born, for an Atman to take a material body in the Kali Yuga, that's the result of their karma and gunas, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That could be, but of course there could be a number of elaborations and factors, because not everyone that is born in Kali Yuga has a Kali Yuga mentality. We have also souls who take birth in Kali Yuga to do some good work. Like in a hospital, you will not only have patients and diseased people. You will also have doctors and nurses and people who work there. They're not there because they're sick. So sometimes we have to be careful to evaluate people, not so much based on their birth, but based on their actual guna and karma.
An example would be Krishna Chaitanya.
Yeah, one example, yes. And that could be lots of other, even more ordinary people who are just like, for example, in this period we have, a greater division between the souls who want to evolve and the souls who want to create problems to others. So we can see an increasingly sharp distinction between the two groups, Devas and the Asuras.
What you are saying here, Mataji, is it's time that is the driver, and people take birth where the karma and guna takes them. But that being said, there are exceptions where there are more purer devotees that are there.
It's according to karma and guna, but they have a different karma. They have a different task in life.
Yes, because we mentioned last time, Mataji, that certain liberated souls seek a material body for a specific purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Like in the school, you find students, but you also find teachers. So the teachers don't go to school for the same reason that the students go.
Yep, that's crystal clear now.
Okay, good. Examples are always a good idea. So basically, what happens is that the seasons of the cycle of the 4 yugas, they change the circumstances, and during the progress of the yugas, actually spiritual realization and moksha actually become easier, because there is less time to focus on them, and it is so clear, it becomes increasingly clear that we actually have to give up the material identification and attachments. In Satya Yuga, the human beings live on a level of sense gratification, we can say, prosperity, happiness, and peace and everything. That is comparable to that of the higher worlds of the Devas. But they, as Krishna is explaining in Bhagavad Gita, sattva binds the soul, the conditioned soul, to happiness. So it's more difficult for the people in Satya Yuga to attain moksha because they're so happy with material life. So if at the end of the Satya Yuga they have not attained moksha, they may, take birth again in Treta Yuga. And so on and so on and so on. They go on until they take birth in Kali Yuga. And then in Kali Yuga, they find that the life becomes more and more difficult. So they are more encouraged to think about a better purpose for life. You understand?
Yes. No. That example is so important.
Yeah.
It's just.
That is also what Sukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit. In this verse he says, Kalir dosha nije rajan. That the age of Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, of problems. But there is one thing that is redeeming all the faults of Kali Yuga, is that Kali Yuga is so much easier to attain moksha and to attain this realization, God realization, because we have the very obvious, evidence that the material world is not a perfect place. It's not our real destination, our real home. We cannot relax in the material world. So, the duration of the 4 yugas is subject to various interpretations. We can see here there is the difference between divine years and solar years. Now, in divine years, in the words of the Devas, 1 day of the Devas is 1 year of the human beings on the planet Earth. So if you calculate the numbers given in the shastra of the duration of the 4 yugas, if you calculate according to the Devas, it is less. It is 4 and 4, it's about 5,800 years. But in solar years is, it's more than, it's 1.5 million, more than 1.5 million years. And so on and so forth. So the Kali Yuga, according to the divine years, is supposed to be just 1,200 years. But according to the solar years, it's more than 4,000. So, we have the start and end. Okay. So the Krita Yuga, we have this popular calculation that is that is offered by a famous book on astrology and astronomy. Is called the Surya Siddhanta. I think you may have heard about it.
I have heard about that, yes.
Yeah. So this is the calculation according to the Surya Siddhanta. So in the most popular calculation, Kali Yuga, in which we live today, started in 3102 before the current era. And of course, it will end 400,000 and change years from now. We have here from the Mahabharata, the quotation: a year of man is equal to a day and night of the gods, I mean devas. 4,000 celestial years is the duration of the first of Krita, the morning of the sun. So we have the the passage between one yuga and the other. In Manusmriti also the same thing. It's saying the same thing, 12,000 years, the total of 4 human ages, 1 age of the devas. The Surya Siddhanta, here it is, okay. So, Surya Siddhanta is giving the most specific numbers. So, day of the devas, 6 times 60 of them a year, 12,000 are denominated quadruple age. So, the solar years are 4,300,000. Okay. So, the difference of the golden and the other ages is as measured by the difference in the number of the feet of virtue in each as follows. The 10th part of an age multiplied successively by 4, 3 to 1, gives a length. Okay. So, what are the 4 feet of Dharma? We find that in the beginning of the Bhagavata Purana, when Maharaj Parikshit meets the Kali Purusha, and there is obviously that's symbolic, the Dharma has the form of a bull who is standing on one leg only, because the other 4 legs have been broken. And the Shudra, in the dress of a king that represents the Kali Yuga, is beating the last remaining leg of Dharma. So the last remaining leg of Dharma is Satyam, truthfulness, honesty. Then the second one that was still there in Dvapara Yuga, besides truthfulness, was compassion. In Treta Yuga, besides truthfulness and compassion, Dharma was still standing on 3 legs, and the third one was cleanliness. And the first leg of Dharma to go was tapas, or proper effort, proper self-discipline. So these are the 4 legs of Dharma described in that chapter of the Bhagavata Purana. Now
but
we can see.
Interestingly, Mataji, what isn't known as much is the fact that as each yuga goes on, legs get lost. That's less known amongst neophytes, I must say. So that's news to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's okay. It's pretty known. It's pretty, common knowledge. But anyway, we continue. We continue. Any questions about this?
No. I think that's been really clear. I think that what again was interesting was when you said that in the Satya Yuga, it's harder to obtain moksha, because I would have thought that with loads of sages meditating in the fields, there would have been a lot of them that would have got moksha. That would have been my impression.
Because
that again is news to
exactly. The meditation was not to get moksha, but to have a happy life, to be in harmony with the universe, like the devas. Like we mentioned the devas. The devas are not on the level of moksha, but they're definitely on the level of sattva. But sattva binds the soul to happiness.
Indeed, we've talked about that. It's still one of the three gunas.
Yeah.
So in reality, it's not. It doesn't transcend the gunas.
Exactly.
It's still one of the three gunas. So
yeah.
The impression was, if I was to go to the Satya Yuga now, I would see in woods and forests sages every 100 meters in meditation, liberated already. Not
liberated. The point is that we don't, we have to clarify what we mean by liberation. If you think that, I read an answer on Quora about that, and this guy usually is quite knowledgeable, learned guy, and he was saying, moksha is not a big thing. Even when you go to the toilet in the morning, you're getting a kind of moksha, because you get liberated from your, from your excrement. Well, I wouldn't say that. Many people think that moksha, or liberation, is to become free from suffering, which was the point of Siddhartha Gautama, called the Buddha. But that's only a very limited step. That's not the real liberation. We just get, liberated from suffering. Okay, yeah, But if tell.
So in essence, if I was to walk in the Satya Yuga now, in the woods and fields, there would be indeed lots of sages. But in reality, they'd be meditating to obtain a sattvic state rather than necessarily liberation.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because
so that's again
exactly, and in fact, they would be in a very similar, as we said before, on a very similar level as like the devas. So they would have a very long life, not many sufferings. There would be less sufferings regarding birth, death, and and no old age and no disease. But the devas are also born and die. Okay, so in Satya Yuga, human beings are living very much in a life, very much similar to the life of the devas on the higher worlds. But still, that's in the material world. In the material, they're limited. That's not liberation. That's not transcendental.
Do you know, Mataji, as this conversation, please don't laugh when you hear this, but as this conversation's gone by, the Kali Yuga is getting more and more attractive.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the Sukadeva said. The Kali Yuga is not that bad. It depends on us. What we do with what we are given.
Yeah, absolutely. So please continue. This is very insightful.
So, people were just focusing. Dharma doesn't mean moksha. So the Yuga Dharma is a Dharma. It's not a Yuga moksha. There are
That's interesting. So effectively, those four pillars, as we've discussed before, are there to support society.
Exactly.
But they do not necessarily, they're not synonymous with moksha. They're there to help. Of course not.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, without Dharma, you cannot attain moksha. Okay? Because without Dharma, we keep doing stupid things that create bad karma and ignorance and suffering. So we are just stuck in a corner.
Indeed, but the four on their own don't equate to moksha. That's my whole.
Exactly. The Vedic idea, the Vedic knowledge clearly explains that there are four purusharthas, four purposes for the human life, which are dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. This is the natural progress of human life. This universe, this world was made to afford people, to allow the souls to actually enjoy life. And then when you enjoy life, okay, yeah, okay, now I can go. Because we start with Dharma. Without Dharma, nothing can be done. Okay, because Dharma is the basis that supports everything. Dharma supports Artha, Kama, and Moksha. The word Dharma, you probably heard it about that, literally means to support. So the Dharma,
and that's exactly why there are 4 pillars.
Yes, exactly. Because it supports human society. It supports the individual. It supports the universe.
And effectively, what that support looks like changes with each yuga cycle, effectively.
Well, the way in which we can support Dharma, we participate to Dharma, changes according to each yuga cycle. The point is that we become, the circumstances make it more difficult to keep all the 4 legs. Like we have seen, Dharma already, is lost 3 legs and just one is still there. But that doesn't mean that we should not follow all the 4 legs, support all the 4 legs.
Okay. So you're saying that the table can still stand.
Yeah, exactly.
With one pillar. It's just it's just how it stands is different, basically. In essence,
yeah, but it can also stand off all the 4 legs, both at the individual level and the collective level. Because the most important one is satyam, truthfulness, honesty, sincerity. If we're not sincere, we're not honest, at least with ourselves, anything we do is garbage.
So I've got a question for you now, Mataji, based on this. So, obviously with the story from the sacred Srimad Bhagavatam where Parikshit meets the Kali, the demon Kali, who's...
No, the Kali Purusha. No, it's not the
Kali Purusha.
It's not even an Asura. It's a symbolic character.
It's a symbolic character.
Yeah.
Who's torturing the bull of Dharma, basically.
Yeah.
And basically, Mataji, so we know you've really vividly described the 4 pillars now being reduced to 1. Now, Mataji, what does that translate into the Kali Yuga? Because you've removed cleanliness, you've removed the other 2, you're left with Satyam. So, Mataji, what does it mean to me and you sitting looking at the Kali Yuga now? What does that look like? How do you translate that?
That basically means that we have to focus first and foremost on defending Satyam. Because it's the fundamental one. It's the fundamental leg that can help us, to get Dharma on all 4s again.
Exactly. So the focus has to therefore be on Satyam.
Yeah.
So with that, Mataji, what does that look like? What does the focus on Satyam? Because you've mentioned that if you'd go to the Satya Yuga, and all of us have heard that if you went to the Satya Yuga, there would be complex yajnas and all sorts of different things. People lived a lot longer, etc. But here, we have to focus more on Satyam. So what does that look like, and how does it differ from what people used to do to obtain moksha in say, the Satya Yuga or the Treta Yuga or the Para Yuga, basically?
Basically, in order to attain moksha, we just have to realize that we are not the body. We have to overcome the material identification and attachment. Now, the Yuga Dharma of performing yagyas like in the Karma Kanda with offerings to the devas is not taking us to moksha. How we attain moksha in Satya Yuga is not through the Yuga Dharma, is through the Atma Vidya. And that is in all yugas. The Atma Vidya is carried through the parallel path of yoga, tantra, and bhakti. The Karma Kanda is not going to take us to moksha. The yagyas, the offerings to the devas, are not going to take us to moksha. And similarly, in Satya Yuga, no, there is no yagya. In Satya Yuga, there is meditation, yoga meditation. In Treta Yuga, the yagyas, the Karma Kanda are more important. But the just the meditation, what are you meditating on?
And that's why, Mataji, you saw the Govardhana Lila, where you moved away from the rites invoking Indra as a passage to, and you moved away. Does that symbolize that shift you've outlined just now, basically?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. In a sense, yes. But we have to remember that when Krishna started with the Govardhana Lila and told, no need to worship Indra. Indra has, to do his job anyway. Krishna didn't say, let's worship the Brahman. Let's attain moksha. Let's be devotees of Ishvara. Krishna said, let's worship the cows and the brahmanas. And the brahmanas are actually, they are the ones who know Brahman. But the brahmanas have always been there, those who know Brahman have always been there. Now, the point is that the brahmanas are the medium, the bridge by which we can actually worship the Supreme Brahman. They are not the Supreme Brahman. I don't know. Is that clear?
Yes, it is clear, and that makes, and again, that's much. I like how you've explained that. Yes, so please carry on.
Okay, so basically, in Satya Yuga, people were just meditating. Okay, they were tuning in with the devas, with the nature and everything. But, some people could also meditate on the Brahman. So that's why we got the Upanishads. And Krishna, we also get the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna in Gita says, beginning of first chapter, I have taught this science to Vivaswan at the beginning of the creation. So even before the first Satya Yuga started. So, the knowledge of transcendence, the knowledge of Brahman, Atman Brahman, is eternal. It doesn't start at some point because of the cycle of the yugas. Only it becomes more visible in a sense because people are becoming, we can say, disillusioned with the material life. So when you can meditate all day, and just on the harmony of the universe and the health and, the happiness and, why should you do anything different?
Okay, so again, you've explained that stark difference quite clearly. So my point here, Mataji, is that, and that's clear now, and people in the Satya Yuga lived longer as well, Mataji.
Yes.
You've touched on this, that their lifespans were longer.
Yeah, there you go, I have time,
Yes. Why was that, Mataji? Is it just the consciousness? Is it just their karma and guna, the cycles, the
Yeah,
times,
because
all this
when you
lot?
are in harmony with nature, you live longer. The devas live longer. Human beings in Satya Yuga live longer because they are in harmony with the laws of the universe.
Do you know what's really interesting, Mataji? And
Yeah.
again, this is a 1 minute detour from the subject, but again, when I was a child and my religious education teacher taught me the Bible,
Okay.
they in the Old Testament, when there were descriptions of how long people lived previously, they lived a lot longer.
Yeah.
Were they actually referring to historical events in previous ages when people
all
lived longer?
the ancient cultures have the memory of a golden age in which human beings lived much longer. Not only the Bible copied it from the list of kings of Sumer and the list of kings of ancient Egypt, pre-dynastic Egypt. That were those early kings in this the tradition of Sumer and Egypt. They say that the kings were living thousands of years.
And Mataji, again to labor, and again just to sort of touch on another quick detour, people were taller in previous yugas, and does that have anything to do with the giants and the Nephilim, Mataji, that people sort of talk about a lot? There were, and you occasionally hear of conspiracy theories where
the point is that the stories of the Bible and the various books of the Bible, also including the so-called apocrypha, non-canonical books of the Bible, and also all the other stuff that was built over them, is actually not some original knowledge. It is copied from previous, texts and traditions. Now, the Nephilim in the Bible are, a bit, controversial because of the translations of the Bible. And the texts that we have now in the canonical Bible have been, so distorted and mistranslated and mispresented that it's, you can find so many contradictions and confusions. Like, for example, talking about the Bible, let's start with the Elohim. Elohim is a plural of El. And the Nephilim are the sons of God. So the sons of God are also gods, right? The Nephilim and the Elohim are the same.
Yes.
So according to, if we go and dig, we find that the first, the early religion, tradition of Palestine was actually Canaanite. The Canaan was, the Bible, the God of the Bible is actually the same of the Canaan. In fact, there is a passage, famous passage of the Bible, in which Yahweh tells, Moses and all the other people, you used to call me Baal. Now you have to call me Yahweh, because the same person.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So what happened is that in the beginning, the story was that, it was very much polytheistic. And still in the canonical Bible, we find that Yahweh says, I am a jealous God, I am the God of Israel. Now, why you king blah blah, I don't remember the name, why you go to ask oracle from the El of Moab, of another, Israeli tribe? You have me, I am the god of your tribe, don't go to the god of the other tribes.
Yes.
It's
So
like, what?
So the key point here, Mataji, is that yes, there is truth to the fact that people lived longer
Yeah.
and their lifespans were longer and they were taller,
Yeah,
for various
and
reasons.
the land was giving more foods, more things, and not only in the stories that we find in all cultures about the golden age, but I don't know if I think you heard about the megalithic culture.
Yes, I have. Yes.
You go, for example, into Baalbek in Lebanon, and you find this.
Oh, those stones. Those
Yeah,
stones that no one knows how they were put there,
exactly,
etc. Basically,
exactly.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
that's a pretty big stones.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And would you therefore, by inference, the temples in South America, the pyramids,
Yeah,
etc., they all part of the same phenomena, so to speak,
yeah.
Mataji,
We just
basically.
look at the Temple of Baalbek. You can see that the lower strata, the ones which
Yes.
are more
Yeah,
ancient, are
yeah.
the biggest ones.
Yes, absolutely.
This
And then
is
you've also
just the
got
you know the archaeological demonstration of the decline of the yugas.
yeah, no, absolutely. So my next question, Mataji, is that obviously, why are things so bad in the Kali Yuga? If it's different, why is it that there's so much hope and despair, or is it a self-perpetuating cycle, Mataji, where people is it people making them like that? Because clearly it's a different season. It's like winter. You've talked about the seasons. Now, when I approach a season, Mataji, I don't get depressed in winter. I just do a different thing.
Well, it
You know what
depends.
I
It
mean?
depends on the weather. In winter, you can have some sunny days,
Yes,
and you can
correct.
have some very depressing,
Yes,
snowing or even
yes,
raining
yes,
sleet. Then
yes.
then you get depressed. Yeah, because
Indeed,
what can you do? You
indeed.
cannot do anything.
Indeed. But so what matters, my point here is more general than that.
Yeah.
It's should the average army look at the Kali Yuga? How should we view it? Because should we view it in as a time of negative? I mean, obviously, bad things are going to happen. There's going to be days when a storm comes, a winter storm, and it's going to and you're not going to get out of your house, etc. So winter always has its challenges. But my point is, it's just another season. So my point, Mataji, is, and some people actually like winter. I love some winter days, actually. I must
Well,
say. So my
yeah,
point here is that
if you are properly equipped, yes. But if you are a homeless person, with very light clothing,
yes, that's
and no
correct.
food and no heating, and that you will enjoy it less.
So here's my next question, Mataji. We know that a lot of Vaishnavism they say that chant the holy name, and that's how you get through. That's popularized a lot. The Harinam that's popularized a lot. Um, what what are the strategies that we've just talked about? One, the Harinam, but I'd love to hear a more general view as to how the rishis, what Sanatana Dharma prepares us for the Kali Yuga. We've talked about the Harinam being one, but that's just certain Vaishnava
Okay. Oh, no,
organizations.
no, no, no. It's not just for the Vaishnavas. That
Okay.
also, again, we have to understand what Vaishnava means. Anyway, but we see Bhagavad Gita very clearly says, that joys and sorrows are just like heat and cold. So the heat and cold, including the yugas, the Kali Yuga, we just need to tolerate them without, allowing ourselves to be derailed from our actual purpose and duty. Now, the holy names are not just Vaishnava. because God has innumerable names. You go to the Vishnu Sahasranam, and in the Vishnu Sahasranam you'll find a lot of names of Shiva, and, So, we are talking about not a real Vaishnava is someone who is not sectarian. Okay, so a real Vaishnava is someone who has realized what is the meaning of Vishnu. Vishnu is a Param Brahman, and Shiva is also Vishnu, and Shakti is also Vishnu. You cannot separate them. Now, these are the personalities of God, the personalities of Brahman, Param Brahman. Now, we have, besides all these three personalities of God and their avatars, we have the Devas, who are material positions. Their conditioned souls, usually, it's a material job because they are in charge of the material universe. Now, the problem is that many people have been confused by the Manichaeistic, schizophrenic idea that the material world is bad, is a jail, is a bad place. We need to get rid of this. We need to go away because we fell into the material world. No, the material world is a good place. It's like, when you think that the school is a very bad place and you just want to get out of school. And when the teacher is sick, you celebrate because you're getting out of school early.
Yes.
That's stupid.
Been there, done it, warned the teacher.
Yeah, that's stupid. The school is not a place for punishment. This idea of the school as a place of punishment is a typical Zoroastrian, Manichaeistic, idea. And that is the root of the problem. Because we could live happy. You remember the Shi's Upanishad. Jijivicek Chatam Samaha.
Yes, but you know where this comes from as well, Mataji, if I'm to be candid? It comes from people's misinterpretation of the banyan tree description in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
So people have misinterpreted that and taken that out of context. I think it might be chapter 15 or something.
Yeah.
Verse 1 or
Purushottama Yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Krishna says we must cut the root of this tree with an axe of knowledge. So people think, we must destroy the material world. No, we must cut the root of the tree. Is our attachment to that tree. Yeah.
So with that, Mataji, I think I'd love to hear the process of moksha in the Kali Yuga, what that means, chanting the holy names uniformly. We're not talking
No. It's not that. No. Chanting the holy name is not the process of moksha. Again, just like the Karmakanda Yagyas, just like the meditation, just like the deity worship, is not the process for moksha. These are not processes for moksha. These are processes for dharma. Dharma is not moksha. It's a different thing.
Yes.
Moksha is beyond all the yagyas. Moksha is beyond the chanting of the holy name. It's beyond the worship of the deities. It's beyond the karmakanda rituals, the yagyas. It's beyond the meditation. Because it depends on what you meditate. Again, it's not exactly yoga. The real yoga is explained by Krishna Bhagavad Gita, and it is the union of the Atman in the Brahman, which means Tantra, which means Bhakti. So the chanting of the holy name is not Bhakti. it's it helps bhakti, just like dharma is required in all forms of dharma are required to achieve moksha ultimately. But what Krishna says in Gita at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, sarva dharman parityaja. Ultimately, we have to go beyond all the dharmas. That means that the dharma is okay, but we don't have to go against dharma. We have to go beyond the dharma. But that's different. People think, oh, no dharma, okay, against the dharma. No. Krishna says, those who have completely abandoned all adharmic activities, they can get to moksha. But also we have to give up the concept of dharma as, related to the material life. You understand? Dharma is still the basis for the existence in general, but we want to transcend the existence. So the dharma, that's why we make a difference between the Sanatana Dharma and the Swadharma.
So Mataji, would it be therefore fair to say that moksha is the same, the path, irrespective of whichever yuga cycle you're in?
Yes, most certainly, yeah. Moksha means just giving up all identifications and attachments with the material world. So whether you give up, identification with a beautiful thing, or you give up identification with the lousy thing, you're giving up. It's going beyond.
I think where the confusion has been people have equated a specific activity or a ritual, such as chanting the holy name, as the quote-unquote strategy for the Kali Yuga, and they've left it at that. So people have said all we need to do is chant the holy name, and that's it.
Yeah, which is a fact, because when Chaitanya was saying Gatiranyata, there is no other way to achieve the goal. But what is the goal? Because we have to go to get moksha through the support of dharma. Again, we cannot go against dharma and attain moksha. But at some point, it's not just the chanting that is going to give us moksha. When we keep chanting, we are associating with God, because the name is not different from the person. Okay. The name of God is not different from God. So we get constantly purified and constantly enlightened. And then at some point, we, like Krishna says, Vishateta Danantaram, we enter in Krishna, we enter in God, in Vishnu, whatever. And this, we don't need to chant the name anymore.
Yes.
That's the point. Because we become one with the everything, the name and the person and everything. We become one. So we don't have to do anything specific. It's not that we give up our individuality, our service or whatever. No, because again, each molecule of water will always be 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, wherever it is. It is, in the air or in the ocean or whatever. It is still a molecule of water. Thank you very much. Okay, but the point is, you don't have to do anything specific. You don't have to do any ritual.
Absolutely. So, Mataji, I've got a follow-up question to this.
Okay.
Would that be all right?
Yeah.
So, yuga cycles, and when they end, we know there's a descent of an avatara. And there's that famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita that, I descend to wipe out the evildoers. Some people, Vinashaya Dushkritam. So can you talk a little bit about the end of the Yuga cycles?
Yeah, okay.
What that specifically means to the Kali Yuga, for the Kali Yuga, etc.
Okay, first of all,
everyone talks about.
Yes, thanks. First of all, we have to understand that avatar doesn't mean reincarnation. Okay?
No.
Because avatars are also the shastra. Is also the Archa Vigraha, the deity in the temple. Is also the name. Kali Yuga Namarupa Krishna Avatar. Okay? So, at the end of Kali Yuga, the Bhagavata Purana is saying, at the end of Kali Yuga, Kalki will appear, as an avatar of Vishnu, will appear, and what Kalki will do, he will kill, destroy all the politicians and bureaucrats. All the people, all the Shudras, all the degraded people who take up the position of kings without being qualified and without doing the proper duties, performing proper duties of kings. And when all this burden of the earth has been removed, new Satya Yuga will start. Now, it doesn't mean that it starts instantly. Can still be, maybe a few hundred years or something. But it will start again. Satya Yuga will start again. There will be a pralaya. At the end of each yuga and each cycle of each Mahayuga, there is a pralaya, destruction. But the only, there are different degrees and levels of destruction, of pralaya. Sometimes only, some parts are destroyed or flooded, and other times more parts are flooded and destroyed. At the end of each day of Brahma, which is 1,000 cycles, 1,000 Mahayugas, at the end of the day of Brahma goes to sleep, so all the worlds below Brahmaloka are destroyed, including the Svarga. And at the end of life of Brahma, the universe itself is dissolved and re-enters into the body of Mahavishnu. So there are cycles in the cycles, in the cycles, in the cycles. So there are also sub-cycles within the Kali Yuga. As I was saying, winter can have some, pretty sunny days and some very lousy,
Yes.
It doesn't depend on which part of the winter you are. It's not that the winter will become, more and more and more depressing. Maybe not, There could be some sunny days, some, sunny spells. Yeah.
Yes.
It's, especially at some point, I think in the end of January, I think there is some, some sunny days that are cold.
Yes.
And then again it becomes very cold.
And
yeah.
So Mataji, can I ask you, what determines the end? In the sense, is there a specific set of conditions that determines the appearance of Kalki or Rama or Krishna? Is it because, is it a situation where a Dharma itself is being threatened? Can you describe?
Yeah, but that's yeah, exactly. The avatars appear when they want to appear. It's not that we can make them appear by creating, the proper damage.
No.
Yeah.
No. Of course, what I'm saying, we don't initiate, we don't engineer their appearance. I'm just saying, it's not like some mad people now trying to engineer the appearance of certain messiahs.
Yeah, we want to make the Kali Yuga end, so we blow up the entire planet. Yeah.
So we're not talking that. We're talking about the natural. When do are there set of conditions that happen, could that trigger the end of a yuga cycle?
I don't know about that. I'm not sure about about the answer. So I never thought in those terms. I never researched.
I mean, I had read that when there's a situation where people are not able to practice dharma at all in any shape or form, as long as you're able to do it, it's a different matter. But when don't, I don't know if that's true, Mataji, but that's what I'd heard, basically.
Well, we also have examples of that kind of situation happening, so in other yugas, as for example, when Hiranyakashipu was in charge, and no one was allowed to practice dharma. Everybody had to worship Hiranyakashipu, and the devas were totally out of business, and he killed all the cows and all the brahmanas, and how you practice dharma like that. Nobody could practice dharma, and yet it wasn't the end of Kali Yuga.
Right. So the conditions are somewhat unknown or still.
Yeah, I mean, in general, there is a general rule, as Krishna says, yada hi dharmasya glanir, bhavati bharata, abhyutanam adharmasya. When the dharma declines and adharma rises, which could be any time. It doesn't depend on Kali Yuga. So we could have still the golden island, the golden age in Kali Yuga. We could do that. Nobody is, God is not going to stop us.
No, absolutely. So, Mataji, my other question here is that how does the Kali Yuga affect the practice of spirituality? We said that obviously the path of moksha, Atman realization, remains the same. But how does that affect spirituality on a societal level? You've talked previously about the fact that in previous ages we've seen that we've seen the Gurukuls fading over time.
Again, we should not confuse spirituality with dharma and sattva, because spirituality is transcendental. When you are a good person, it doesn't necessarily entail that you are a spiritual person. You cannot be a spiritual person by being a bad person. Okay, you cannot be in tamas and be spiritual, because that's not happening. But being in sattva is not sufficient to be a spiritual person. So again, in sattva guna, in a sattvic society, people are happier, and they can also have better opportunities for spiritual life. But it's their choice if they want to transcend, the material identification and attachments, or continue enjoying it. It's not necessarily that because you have a sattvic society that it will be a spiritual society. Sattva is, is conducive to spiritual awareness, but it's not the same thing.
No, absolutely. But practically speaking, Mataji, is there a role for, what is the role of organized religion, quote unquote, in the times we live in now, effectively, Mataji, in the Kali Yuga?
Yeah. Organized religion is what to say, is a quite a confusing term, because what is the meaning of organized? You can organize a situation, a group of people who cooperate together. And you can organize a group of people where you have a dictator that is forcing everybody else to do whatever he wants. These are two types of organization, but they're very different. It's not that we don't want organized religion, so we want to be disorganized. We want to be whimsical, spontaneous. Transcendental doesn't mean whimsical. Doesn't mean that you don't follow any principles, any rules, any duties. So organization basically means duties, means what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it. So the Varna Ashrama Dharma is a type of organization, but it has a very clear distinction between the material power and the spiritual power. The Kshatriya is a Kshatriya, is doing the Kshatriya job, and the Brahmana is doing the Brahmana job. Now, the problem with what we call organized religions, they are basically Asuric religions, starting from the Zoroaster, idea, and then coming down to the Abrahamic religions, in which, these organized religions, you have a hierarchy. You have someone telling everybody else what to do. And people have to believe whatever they tell them to believe. And they have to do whatever they are told to do. But that's not the idea of organization. That's the idea of tyranny. That's the idea of dictatorship. Unfortunately, Abrahamic religions, and on a certain level, also in certain measure, also the Zoroastrian religion, have this idea because they are based on dualism. So if you are a Brahmana, you are a Kshatriya, there is different duties, but Krishna says in Gita, I have created the four Varnas according to Guna Karma, but I am not bound by them. The Atman is not bound by them. That is the meaning of transcendental. So organized religions can only be material because they're based on power, material power. Now, beyond the organized religions, we have the transcendental level. Transcendental doesn't mean that you're not following the organization. It means you're not a condition, you're not a slave of the organization. Like Krishna in Gita, when he's telling Arjuna that he has to do his duty as a Kshatriya, the position of the Kshatriya is organized. He has duties. But then it has, Arjuna, you should fight, you should perform your duty, but without being attached to the identification and, the result of the actions of your duty. So you have to remember that everything is Brahman, everything is Atman. And your body and mind will be engaged in the material duty. But your soul, your self, your real self, you as the soul, you're not engaged in any material activity. You see why Bhagavad Gita is so important, because it explains everything. If we understand Bhagavad Gita, we understand everything else.
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Indeed, it does, Mataji. I think it all brings back to the Bhagavad Gita, which is why it is the scripture for the Kali Yuga, effectively, isn't it?
Exactly. In fact, Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna at the beginning of Kali Yuga. Okay.
Absolutely.
Kali Yuga started.
I I would love to thank you for your time. It's been a wonderful discussion.
Yeah.
And are there any points that you feel we have not covered, or do you think we've covered?
Oh,
the
we
majority
can
of what
continue next time. Actually, the only thing that I was thinking about was the, as we mentioned before, the idea of the cycle of ages from the tradition of Yukteswara and David Frawley, who is more or less acknowledged and followed by many modern Western Vedic astrologers. But we can see, it's it's a bit weird, because they say the Satya Yuga ended in 6000 BCE,
Right.
and the Kali Yuga started, Kali Yuga, Iron Age, descending, descending, ascending, okay. Descending, started in 701 BCE and ended in 400. Seriously, in 400 AD, BC, 400 of the present era, things were much worse than today. But today, it didn't become much better because of the different yuga. In fact, starting from 1600, we can see, but that is within the Kali Yuga. That is the mistake that Yukteswara and Frawley make. They don't see how within the Kali Yuga there can be also sub-yugas, but not ascending, descending, or whatever. It's things that happen within the Kali Yuga. We have different days in the winter. Some days are worse, some days are better. Okay.
I understand, Mataji. Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to discuss this topic with you, and I think it's I've learned so much about foundational principles that has allowed me to link the yuga to key foundation principles. I'm very grateful for your time, Mataji.
Thanks to you. You're giving me the opportunity to talk about these things. So we stop here, and we can regroup on WhatsApp and see for next time. Okay.
Jai Shri Mannarayan.
Jai Shri Mannarayan, Jai Jagannath.